Marseille, France, 2011. It started small. Just a strange look here and there, an odd moment while brushing his teeth, a quiet voice inside whispering, "That's not me." At first, Jacques laughed it off, but over time, that thought stopped being funny and started growing claws. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we dive into one of the rarest and most disturbing mental conditions ever documented, a case where a man lost the ability to recognize himself and believed he was being haunted by a stranger who looked exactly like him. Jacques was 68 years old, a retired math teacher, precise, thoughtful, the kind of man who color-coded his socks and always set his watch 5 minutes ahead. After his wife passed away, Jacques didn't fall apart. He just settled into silence. He wasn't unhappy, but every day felt exactly like the one before. Morning tea, a crossword. Then a glance in the mirror, a quiet ritual. He'd smile and say, "Let's make today count, old man." It was his way of staying grounded. But then, one morning, something changed. One morning, the mirror didn't smile back. His reflection just stared. No smirk, no twinkle in the eye, just blank. That first day, Jacques said nothing. The next day, he avoided the mirror entirely, and by the third day, he covered it with an old towel, as if hiding from something he couldn't explain. Then came the voices. He told his neighbor, "There's a man in my apartment. He's quiet, but always there. He follows me room to room, and when I try to ignore him, he watches me harder." His neighbor chuckled at first, until she saw every mirror in Jacques' apartment boarded up. Doctors were called. They suspected early dementia, but Jacques was sharp. He remembered everything. Dates, names, stories from 30 years ago. But there was one thing he couldn't remember: his own face. A neurologist showed him a photo and asked, "Do you know who this is?" Jacques stared for a moment and said, "I've seen him before. He's the one watching me." When they handed him a mirror, he stepped back in fear. "That's him," he whispered. "That's the man. He won't leave me alone." What Jacques had is one of the rarest mental conditions ever documented. It's called Mirror Self-Misidentification Syndrome, a disorder so strange, so specific, that fewer than 50 cases have been officially recorded. Normally, when you look in a mirror, your brain connects what you see with who you are. It's automatic, instant. But after a minor stroke, something broke inside Jacques' brain, specifically the right frontal lobe and the fusiform face area, the regions that handle facial recognition and self-awareness. So when Jacques saw his reflection, his brain processed the image just fine, but it didn't connect it to me. It connected it to him, a stranger. It only got worse. Jacques started talking to the man, leaving food for him, asking him questions. Sometimes he'd whisper, "Please, let me live my life." One night, his neighbor heard glass shatter. She rushed in to find Jacques on the floor, his hand bleeding, the mirror cracked open like a spider web. "He's trying to take my life," Jacques sobbed. "He wants to be me." Jacques was moved to a psychiatric care unit. Doctors prescribed antipsychotics and began mirror exposure therapy. Small, supervised steps to reconnect image with self, but recovery was slow and uncertain. Even months later, Jacques still referred to his reflection as him. "He eats when I eat, sleeps when I sleep, but he's not me. I don't know who I am anymore." Mirror Self-Misidentification Syndrome falls under a group of disorders called Delusional misidentification syndromes, conditions where your perception and memory drift apart. The results can be devastating, because when your brain breaks that trust, you don't just lose your reflection, you lose yourself. Cases like Jacques have been documented in medical literature, though rarely. Experts like Dr. Oliver Devinsky and Dr. Todd Feinberg have studied these delusional misidentification syndromes, trying to understand how the brain forgets itself. So here's the final question. If one day you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back, would you believe your eyes or your memory? Because identity isn't just what we remember, it's what we feel when we see ourselves. And when that feeling is gone, even the most familiar face becomes terrifying. Thank you all for watching. If this story shook you, there are more to come. Real people, real minds, and the strange space between what we know and what we believe. And if you haven't yet, subscribe for more stories that explore the line between the mind and the impossible. I've left all the sources linked in the description if you want to check them out.